How's it going, everybody? My name is Alejandro, and I'm over here at Urban Athlete Fitness Studio in Calgary. And you may know me as, if you're watching from the gym, you may know me as the instructor that teaches boxing, but I also do personal training as well. And today I wanted to talk about single leg loaded movements or lunges, to put simply. And essentially, it actually would be classified as like a unilateral exercise or one-legged movement, and they do wonders or to help us out with any kind of squatting patterns, deadlifting, or other leg movements to help us build, whether it's to help us build muscle or strength, right? And so, however, I wanted to talk a little bit about what some of the misconceptions that we carry currently when it comes to lunges, how we look at it, and perhaps different approaches or ways to execute some of these movements. Okay, so with lunging, right, there's definitely a few ways that I think we've been taught, even from school, right? There's, for example, right, the 90-90 lunge, right? We're completely upright. There's a lot of gross extension in here. And when I say gross extension, I mean like just excessive extension. So you see torso's upright, right? Knee lines up with the heel there, right? 90 degrees on this side as well, right? Step up, move to the other side, and kind of keep the ball rolling here. Now, let me tell you why this, I would say, mechanically, right, or biomechanically doesn't make much sense, right, in terms of how we move our bodies, right? If you think of a sprinter, right, I'll use a sprinter, they're great examples, right? They start off right here. And you can already see how my ankle's flexed in this position, and then I have to push off of that leg to continue moving onward, right? A lunge essentially is looked as a propulsion of sorts. We propel ourselves forward off of that lead leg. Fencer actually is a great example too. In fact, in some literature used to talk about biomechanics or just like movement in general, the fencer is actually the first example because when they thrust their sword, right, they move quite a lot through that lead foot, right, through the ankle, through the knee, through the hip, right. So my point is that when you're lunging, you actually want to take advantage of your range of motion and maximize on your quadriceps, your glutes, and your hamstrings. This actually can do probably more harm than good, especially on the back leg versus the lead leg, right? In this case, in this example here, you do end up putting quite a bit of stress on this knee here. I actually have a knee injury right now, and this is like, actually hurts a lot. In this hip, you put an excessive stress, a stretch on this hip too. So the adductor stretches, the hip stretches, and this quad doesn't even get that much work in. But if I shift my weight over just a little bit more than that, suddenly this leg takes most of the work, most of the load. So I want to show you a few exercises that incorporate that like bit of hip flexion. It wasn't even that much too, right? It's just a little bit, but I'm going to show you a few exercises, some of the ones you may already know that incorporates that. I would say there are three types of movements in regards to like knee dominant flexion or single leg flexion, right? And you have static unsupported, static supported, and then you got dynamic, right? So an unsupported movement would be something like a pistol squat, or like a single leg squat, right? So something like this. The back leg wouldn't touch anything. Something like that, that would be more of an unsupported movement. However, I actually would say that that's pretty challenging because I'll just even show you here, right? The thing with trying to go through your movements and making sure that you work like your quadriceps, your hamstrings, and your glutes effectively, right, is not letting something like that happen, right? And if you're seeing the knee kind of cave in like that, you're going to probably do more harm than good. You're going to load up your adductors a little too much. You're also going to stress your knee out from the inside. If maybe you've heard the term before, it's like a valgus collapse of the knees. It's something that's common with squatting, but can still be a thing with lunging patterns, right? A static supported movement is a little safer and easier to go through. Examples would be like a split squat, or not a split squat, like a Bulgarian split squat, or a top of the foot supported split squat, something like that. I tend to take about 3 feet out, right? And then I take my back leg rested on the bench like so. And then from there, as you can see, right, I flex through my ankle, my knee, and my hip. I flex at my hip. I'm loaded up over the lead leg there. Back up top. Now this movement's nice because you're supported. It's actually easier to kind of accomplish the movement in a safer way to know what you want to recruit. So in this case, right, I'm actually pretty close to the bench. So I'm actually getting a lot of quads here, right? Whereas if I bring my foot out a little bit more, I'd actually get a little bit more of my hamstrings and more of a stretch to my glutes. And because I'm still hinged I actually have a little bit more support. I can get my abs fired up a little more, and I'm actually not getting a stretch through my hips. Another example of a static supported movement would be actually just like a static lunge. Something like this. So this is also another one that you could work on too. Right? And then lastly, when it comes to dynamic movement, the more common walking lunge would be a good one too. But also a reverse lunge is the same thing. So a walking lunge, right, would be something like this, right, where you're loaded up over that lead leg, right, similar to the split squat, right. You can kind of adjust the touch to make it so that you recruit either more quadriceps, more hamstrings, or more stretch your glutes. Right? I actually find that it's more of a challenge if you actually keep moving without bringing your foot into the middle, right? So just keep the movement going the whole time, right? As you go through it. But like I said, right, you can adjust just a bit if you want to get a little more of your quads or a little bit of your hamstrings, a little bit more of your hamstrings, pardon me. And then lastly, right, the reverse lunge. Even though it's considered a dynamic movement, I actually find it to be the safest way to approach a lunging pattern, especially if you haven't done them before. In fact, is something like a glider. But if you're at home, for example, or you don't have access to these things, a towel works just as well. And I find this to be even better for reverse lunges. And so what you do is you take your supported foot, right, which is going to be my left leg in this case. I'm going to place it on top of the glider like so, kind of involves my feet. And I'm going to slide it back, right? And then from there I can focus on trying to keep my balance and coordination, right? Or balance really on the lead leg here. Because that's the other elements of single leg movements yes, it can work quite a bit of your muscles like your hamstrings, your quadriceps, your glutes. It can really fire into those areas and also help you really build some support through your joints as long as you're stable. But it also helps you with just your overall balance, right? And that's going to lead into more core activation for you too. So it ends up being a really well-rounded form of exercising, right? That's why it's considered one of your prime movements, because it works so much for your body, right? But really it's actually because it's part of our everyday movement, right? Alrighty, well, I hope that helped you out, right? Those were some single leg movements or single leg knee dominant exercises or lunges, if you will, different types of lunges, right? I hope that kind of helped you tackle them and make yourselves more effective at doing them, but also helps you get closer to your goals in terms of any kind of leg exercise today. So great stuff. We'll see you for the next one, and we'll see you at the gym. Cheers.